We are joined today by one of the hardest working people in the soccer industry, play-by-play extraordinaire, Mike Watson. I use that word intentionally for a reason, but first of all, just thank you for taking the time. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Joshua. You and I have been trying to get this thing together for a minute, so finally we're together. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, very excited to have you here. And I said extraordinaire because you're in a very interesting position. I don't think people who are, who don't have experience doing commentary in a booth understand how difficult just generally it is. But you are doing this without a team that you're covering week in, week out, without a specific league you are focused on where okay, I just need to keep track of these storylines with these 20, 30 teams, whatever it might be. You are going all over the place from USL Championship to NWSL to now CONCACAF U20s, you name it, you're doing it. How do you keep all of this straight? And how do you get enough information and keep yourself up to date with so much to be able to tell those stories for a full 90 minutes? I'm amazed at what you do.
Look and appreciate that. I'm lucky in the sense that, I've got a really good team around me. I was doing, USL Championship with Devin Kerr. He is the foremost expert in that area. I'm doing NWSL with, Lori Lindsay and Lisa Roman and now Christine Huber's in and Marion Crowder and Jill Lloyden. And so you sort of rely on the people around you a lot. With the CONCACAF stuff, it's difficult because you're on your own. So, and I don't always speak the language. So, when you work USL and NWSL, you get 20, 30 minutes with most coaches and you sit down and, where's the team playing well and where are they not and which players are impressing and, who still needs to take another step. And, that helps. You read all the beat reporting stuff that's been coming out. You try and stay up to date with the team's recent results and try and get a grip on how they've been playing from your own eye that can either counteract what the coach told you or very much confirm it. So, there's a big element of that. With the under 20s, and we just came off Nations League at the start of the month. So it's, I think, 51 games over 34 days. It's day by day. So, I got St. Vincent and the Grenadines 4 times. That was very much on purpose. By the time I was done with the Nations League window, you only have to kind of research the 20 players the one time, and then you're able to start picking up all the storylines, reading the reporting in that country. With the under 20s, I did all 3 Mexico group stage games. I did multiple US games. I'm, just sort of trying to arrange my schedule in a way that I'm seeing as many teams multiple times in a span that I can, and then just relying on the people around me to help tell those stories.
Do you enjoy being able to sort of bounce around? It gives you, these different experiences, or is that something that you look at more as kind of an added challenge where you do see the benefits to having 1, maybe 2 leagues to focus on? How do you kind of see the differences, because you're in a different position than many other people who do your job?
Yeah, it's interesting because I also do other sports. So even, I got Monday off. That was my first day off in 11. When you're on that hamster wheel, you're doing games every day. You don't really have time to look ahead 2-3 weeks, which is what I did in May, knowing that Nations League was coming. When I did at the end of Nations League, when I knew U20s was coming.
Right.
I get away for a week or 2 here in July with my wife, and then, you come back, it's, major USL game, national TV, NWSL game, NFL preseason, and then, I'm planning to be involved in college football and college soccer in the fall. So, by the time August rolls around, I'm trying to, Monday I was working on the Arizona Cardinals because they're the first opponent for the Bengals in preseason. So a lot of it's just sort of time management, and I enjoy I enjoy the games, and ultimately, the prep is what comes along with that. And I'm sure if I did 2 or 3 games a week, I would be, I'm interested to see how I would react to that. But I sort of like the grind of, get up and go again. There was a game a couple weeks ago I didn't feel great about. I had 2 more games the next night. So dust yourself off and move on. And, in some ways that's made me a better announcer along the way too. So maybe one day I'll get down to 1 or 2 leagues, but right now, I'm planning SEC college soccer, NFL preseason, NWSL, U20, CONCACAF League, USL Championship. So at least 6 leagues if I'm counting it up over the next month and a half.
Yeah, it's truly incredible. And right, you're obviously doing more than just soccer and so much inside just the soccer space. And the reason I wanted to talk to you first and foremost was we're sort of at this nice little international break for the NWSL, which is allowing you to do some of the other things you're doing right now. As somebody who's covering this league consistently, just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on what we've seen so far. It's been an interesting start to the season. Is there anything in particular that's caught your attention or really surprised you based on what we've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean the form of Alex Morgan. So you look at the top of the standings, and all due respect, Alex Morgan, whose bona fides at the international level cannot be taken away at the domestic level. Double figures hadn't happened before, and you do that in 10 games, and you do it for an expansion team, no less. And all respect to them for how they've been able to utilize her in a way that perhaps Orlando hadn't. And there have been so much change over the years there. And since her time coming from, Western New York through Portland and Orlando, like this year, it's all come together, and she's played at an extraordinary level. And, Germa's been excellent. You can go up and down that San Diego roster. They've gotten the best out of everybody. I think Portland, after a really good Challenge Cup, like there was a stumbling block there. They had the big COVID game where everyone sort of got knocked down a peg. They've sort of figured it out. OL Reign's about to add all these huge pieces.
Yep.
Angel City's about to add LaRue. I have a feeling, once we see the availability report, I think Washington over the next, really more like month, once they, get through the W Championship, are going to start getting to full health, and, they're hanging right at the playoff line. So, there's a bunch of those teams where you kind of go, okay, like it's all still there in front of them, and they could all compete, to make a realistic run at a title with the groups they're assembling right now.
Yeah, there's so many of those things I want to get to. On Alex Morgan, before we move off that topic, are you surprised it's taken this long to have this kind of stretch in NWSL play? Like you said, double digits wasn't a thing that had happened. Or do you think that's more of a sort of commentary on the in and out nature, whether it's injuries, so much national team duty, where it's difficult to get these kind of stretches? I mean, she's never played this well before, but it's not like she's always playing every single game in the NWSL because of other circumstances. Do you think it's partially that she's just gotten a solid run of games here, or do you think that there's more to it than just that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of all of that. I mean, I just pulled up her stats. It was 5 goals in 2018. So, year before sort of the major tournament there. In Orlando, 9 in 2017, which was, coming off the time at Lyon. Like most years, she hasn't gone the distance in it. And this year she's gotten a run of games. I think a coach that knows how to best utilize her. I think you've got a player like, I think Jakobsen's a sort of good foil for her. Like, I think that's a nice interchange in theory. And I think she felt challenged going out to San Diego, a little bit closer to where she was familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I have the feeling that there was a little bit of fire here for Alex Morgan, and that's exciting for all of us. To your point, the number of coaches and frankly dysfunction of the Orlando franchise over the length of its existence, I think plays a role. You know, it's international duty is tough. These players don't get time off. They don't really get time to gel with a team, and Orlando was constantly changing around her. So yeah, I'm a little surprised it happened in an expansion team like San Diego. I'm also not really all that surprised given that she can sort of put the whole team on her back and score goals that way if you sort of utilize her that way. So, it's I think it'd be this many this soon. No.
And on the both expansion teams, of course, they came in with a lot of hype. This is not what you typically think of as expansion teams where, they're going to slowly build it. There was firepower from the beginning. There was plenty of on Angel City with that ownership group. You've brought in some big time names in San Diego as well, both on and off the field. Did you expect these teams to be right there near the top of the league right away? What has surprised you? What do you think has worked for both of them? And now, what do you expect sort of seeing Sydney Leroux, in theory, kind of come in as a replacement now that the Angel City has lost Kristen Press? They're not sort of just going to let that go. They're trying to find a way to compensate for that loss and continue to be competitive.
Right. And obviously that's a brutal loss because I think Press had contributed to however many 5 straight goals leading up to her injury or something like that, more than half over the course of the year, or drastically more than half. That thing was built around Kristen Press.
Yep.
Leroux is a different player. There's an element of that. Still sort of has that pace in behind, can hold the ball up within a possession-oriented system. I think Leroux could actually sort of exceed what she had done in Orlando. That's really exciting to me. When you have that verticality, out of defensive situations, allow Leroux to sort of post up at the edge of the final third, let others get into the mix. Like that's an enticing concept for me. Look, I started the year, and I'm sure I endeared myself to all of San Diego and Los Angeles by saying every expansion team finishes 9th. And I can guarantee one of them won't because they can't both finish 9th in theory. But historically, in this league, expansion means, you're taking the 10th best player off every roster. And depending on where the expansion is, like I've covered Louisville on the men's side since 2017, and I've definitely handled a fair number of racing games. Like it was clear not everyone that was drafted was interested in ending up there. San Diego and LA, they're destination cities. Everyone seemingly that had a connection to those cities was trying like hell to get there. And from a recruiting standpoint, that worked. You went out and got, Casey Stoney, a brilliant coach with international renown. You go out and bring in Freya Coombe, and it's someone who had been in the league longer than, due to all the scandals, almost anyone else in the league. So you've got one of the more experienced coaches, and just sort of the aura of Angel City in your favor. So, like they set themselves up really well year one, perhaps better than any expansion team ever had, to be successful from the jump. I can sit here and think through how expansion worked at Houston, at Orlando, Louisville, but I don't think anyone's quite hit the ground running the way both of them had. It's the crowds, it's the atmosphere, it's the ability to hit the transfer market just a little bit better in the lead up to it. They both have solid long-term plans. Like, yeah, they've both of them have a chance to walk out of this year saying we're the best expansion team the NWSL has ever had.
Definitely. And you look at the top of the goal scoring charts, and it's, the U.S. women's national team front three, essentially, with Mallory Pierce, Sophia Smith, and Alex Morgan all playing so well. So there's not somebody that's, leading the league in goals that's surprising. It's some of the bigger names. But are there a couple players that you think are kind of flying under the radar that have surprised you, or you feel like as the season goes on and maybe whether it's those players cool off a little bit or somebody else just kind of steps up that you're looking at as we continue this season to get some more notoriety or that fans should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because I felt like last year we had sort of talked going back to the 2020 Challenge Cup. This is a super young Spirit team, and look at all this talent, Sanchez and eventually Rodman and Hatch. Like when this comes together, it's going to be really explosive. And while all the injuries to their midfield, especially, have sort of sapped some of that away, like there's no more surprising anymore. Can Rodman get into that mix? I don't know, because Morgan's on 11 goals, and I don't think she's stopping. I think the front three in that have been the three best attacking players in the league this year. Like Sophia Smith, as good as she was last year, great players sometimes make you walk away from a game sort of dumbfounded, awestruck. Sophia Smith has done that to me almost every game I've watched the Thorns this year. And I think I lead all commentators in Thorns games called at this point. Like that's the level we're talking about. And, Mallory Pugh is playing at a level I've never seen her play at in this league ever. And I think she's sort of been challenged to get it up, level wise in the league. So no, I think gradually the next month is going to be really interesting. Remember the World Cup in, I guess it'd be 2019. Who was Midge Purse then? And who's Midge Purse now? Went on that torrid goal scoring form and woke everybody up. This is how good Margaret Purse is. I'm interested to see if we get one of those players here in the next month where it upsets the status quo. I'm interested by that.
And you mentioned OL Reign, and that was another team I wanted to ask you about. Started off with this incredible roster, just adding, NWSL MVPs, gold medalists, World Cup winners, you name it, any kind of accolade. They just went and got more players that have that accolade through sort of this first half of the season. How long do you think it's going to take for this to come together? What do you expect out of these new pieces that are joining? And just how good is this team? What is the ceiling if it all clicks?
Yeah, for OL Reign, they sort of tried this before, right? Like they brought in Henri Le Sommer. They had sort of gone this route last year, but it wasn't really part of a larger cohesive plan. It was just sort of we threw a bunch of, it felt from the outsider's perspective like they threw a bunch of darts. And they're great players, but didn't quite know how it was going to fit. Like, I think there's no doubt what level player you're getting, but also like there's a plan there, and you can sort of go through a handful of the players. Kim Little has done it for Laura Harvey before, right. So you know what you're going to get out of that. So look, you look across that team. If Rapinoe gets to any discernible level of top tier, that's awesome. But whether that happens or not, adding Jordan, still having Rose Lavelle, Kim Little in midfield, you still have Fishlock, Balser. I don't think we've seen the best out of Allie Watt. I can go right down the list, and it is staggering. Like it's, and I don't, from an outsider's perspective, again, I don't see any of them as being the kind that come in and rock the boat of the team. It doesn't mean they won't be, explosive or entertaining, but like there's a team construct that OL Reign believes in, that Laura's always been preaching. I don't think any of the players they brought in aren't bought into that theory. So it'll take a little time. Euros are going to end. The W Championship is going to end. You're going to start getting all these players together. Give it another couple weeks, and I think, the scary thing is, look at Washington. Best team in September ended up lifting the trophy. I think OL Reign might end up being the best team in late August, early September, and they might end up raising that long-awaited trophy.
From a league-wide sort of publicity standpoint, where do you come down on building a team like the one OL Reign has right now? Because it felt like, and yes, they brought in some big time talent last year as well, but since that North Carolina Courage team that was so dominant has kind of dispersed, it at least feels like to me the league had gotten a little more balanced through a variety of things, the expansion teams, some trades, where you didn't have this team with so much at least international firepower. Of course, not all these players are in their primes at the moment, but do you feel like this is sort of harkening back to a certain extent to those North Carolina Courage teams? And do you feel like this is good for the league overall to have all of these names in one spot where you can go see all of them play?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't. It feels more diverse in terms of how the talent's spread out. So it's not like, OL Reign obviously went out and got a couple of big players, but like you look at Portland, you look at San Diego, and North Carolina still has some of that talent there.
Right.
But there are some star-studded squads. It doesn't feel like one. Even when North Carolina was ripping off titles left and right, there always felt like at least one other team that was sort of hanging in there and giving them a run outside of maybe one of those Shield seasons. Let's say this, a number of those players were at their best within that system. And it's to say absolutely nothing about who was orchestrating that system, just purely – that box it flummoxed everybody. The outside backs that came out of North Carolina always seem to be on the verge of the national team because it is so attack-minded, and that's just the way they went about things, and they were able to collect this talent and sort of keep that core together. I look at OL Reign. Could they be? Sure, but so could Portland. I think Coffee has been excellent for them. I think Sophia Smith is scratching the surface. I think Sinclair is having a really good season. They just got Becky Sauerbrunn back, a week or two before the break. So, it's all to say, I think, there's a bunch of teams that could get in there that'll sort of, make things messy. I don't think it's quite as dominant until we see it. I almost have to see it to believe it, but that doesn't mean there's a coach in this league who's prepared to, create the super team, keep them together, and get them to play at their best. It's probably Laura at this point. So I'm kind of, I think everyone in the league can't wait to see how it plays out.
And also wanted to mention some of the other leagues you're covering right now, and also with sort of this nice blend of the Open Cup now going into the semifinals and how well the USL Championship has performed in the tournament to this point, and obviously still have potentially some more memories to make in the semifinals. What does it mean for this league to have the USL Championship, having games on ESPN, pulling upsets now that the Open Cup is kind of back to all of its glory and what it's supposed to be as the tournament for this country? It just feels like kind of everything is coming together in a way I haven't seen it for the USL Championship before.
Yeah, and I think internally we're all seeing it too. I mean, I'm talking to, especially in this kind of stretch, a lot of it's pregame calls. I'm talking to coaches, 5, 6, 7 coaches a week right now in a league that has, 27 teams. So I'm talking to a quarter of the coaches in the league more or less every week, and it usually rotates. And you get a pretty good feel. Everyone's going, this league has never had a higher quality of play. The diversity of, who could actually win. The amount of parity this year is probably unparalleled. I don't feel there is one out-and-out champ. I think it's a lot of different styles of play. It's a lot of different kinds of venues. It's a really interesting league. It's an every Saturday, anyone can win kind of league, which is exciting for me. The cup set for Sacramento, you kind of have to go back a little bit because they kept getting drawn at San Jose, and they finally got them at home, and they finally beat them. And you go, okay, great. We all wanted to see Omaha and Sacramento get someone else, but deep down, we're going, well, if they play each other, at least we're guaranteed one USL team in the semi. they end up getting drawn to the Galaxy. And I've been saying this for the last week or so. Williams, the center back for LA, there's one point where he's looking around and barking at guys, and people are going, well, the Galaxy didn't care. It just wasn't a big deal for them. But, that emotion wasn't false. They were frustrated.
And they were coming off an El Trafico. That was part of it for me, too.
Yeah, they were frustrated. And no, Chicharito didn't start. He had played most every game I think they played in the tournament. He's enthused by it. Araujo didn't start in that game, came off in the 70th minute and played the last 20. But, they played a better game that day. And, if you take out some of the, multi-million-dollar guys, there's a lot of guys in USL that belong in that next tier of MLS. And for them to get the opportunity, for the coaches to get the opportunity, for the fans to get the opportunity, for the cities to get the opportunity to have San Jose come to Sacramento and have Louisville host Nashville. That's supposed to be a bit about what this game is meant to be. So, yeah, I love the Open Cup. I'm overjoyed I got to call 2 quarters. I'll call the semi Red Bulls against Orlando on July 27th. And yeah, that's one of my favorite games of the year, doing that semifinal.
Mine too. Could not agree more. And finally, just real quick, as somebody who's been covering the CONCACAF U20 Championship extensively, now the U.S. is one game away from a berth in the Olympics, and we saw that Mexico is not going to be participating. Mexico didn't even get to the stage where you qualify for the U20 World Cup. However, it's an unfortunate circumstance in the way that this tournament breaks out that way. But what are sort of your biggest takeaways, and how important do you think it is for the U.S. to get over this hump and finally get back to the Olympics?
They have to go to the Olympics. And the really tough part is what is Honduras doing in the same side of the bracket as the U.S.? That's brutal. And they're the ones who knocked the U.S. out of the Olympics last time. And It was Ochoa and Obregon and then the thievery in the back and touched in at the start of the second half and the great goal by Jackson Ewell. I remember that game crystal clear. It's kind of stunning. This is all one tournament, and we're talking about 19-year-olds being tasked with getting a country into an under-23 tournament that isn't happening for 2 more years.
Right.
Most of these guys still won't be on the Olympic roster because they're still only going to be 21. Some of them will be, but a lot of them won't. If you look at Mexico's roster, really look at it, all of them either play for LAFC, LA Galaxy, or one of the big teams in Mexico. But a lot of them are like Necaxa. Pachuca is well known for their academy, but an odd Club America player here or there. I don't think anyone from Chivas made that team. No, they have standards for minutes being played by young players, which should, in theory, give minutes to this age group. And it felt like I'm looking at this guy played 1 game in the Clausura. This guy has played 11 career games in Liga MX. They underestimated what they needed to get this done. The toughest team they played in the group, even if they sleepwalked a bit in it, was Haiti, and they drew 0-0. They fell behind Guatemala early. It's a guy who's gotten a little bit of time in MLS. Kimi Ordonez, who got the opener. Mexico paid a price, and in my opinion, there's a decent amount of hubris that came with it. The statements were all correct, but the roster, when I first looked at it, was kind of, you would think there are a couple more guys. And I'm not saying that Mateo Flores should have been there or that Jonathan Gomez, who was injured, shouldn't have been there. It surprised me. And I give a lot of credit to someone like Jim Curtin saying, yes, you can take 4 of our players in a really busy stretch of games and bring them down. If you want to take this country forward, you have to be giving of yourself. And I was thoroughly impressed with that. I think the U.S. has been a little bit up and down. I think that comes with any young player, that you're going to get some ups and downs. You know, they showed their toughness a little bit against Costa Rica. That was not a simple quarterfinal game. You know, and now they have to face the host country on their home turf with likely 20,000 people there. It's probably the biggest game any of those kids have ever played. And yeah, the U.S., to be at their best, have to get back into this tournament. They have to be in the Olympics. That is all we came here for. Now, to be fair, if they get to the Olympics, they get either the Dominican Republic or Guatemala. They should lift the trophy too. But if you told me at the beginning they'll make the final and lose 7-0 to Mexico, I would have said, great. I'm good with that. We got the 2 tickets we came for.
Right.
Like, that's all it is. Mexico got none of the tickets they came for. Costa Rica got none of the tickets they came for. Jamaica got none of the tickets they came for. So in that sense, just it's an important staging post. The U.S. did not send the best roster they could have. They're going to be a little bit fortunate the way the bracket, chopped down, and a lot of guys on that roster have played quite well to their credit. So, yeah, get to the Olympics. That's all that matters now. Get to the Olympics. We need to be playing in major tournaments.
Wholeheartedly agree with that one too. And finally, you've mentioned a little bit of this, but you're all over the place. There are plenty of opportunities for people to watch you coming up. What is next on your schedule? Where can people be watching you here?
Yeah, so I don't think we're streaming live.
No.
When's this coming out? Because that'll change my answer.
I was going to post it tomorrow morning. So starting Friday, beginning of July.
There we go. Beginning of July. I've got NWSL, the San Diego Washington game this coming weekend. USL Championship July 4th, Colorado Springs and San Diego Loyal. So Landon Donovan's team. So that might be the best national TV game we've been able to put on TV all year. That's exciting. And then I'm going on an 11-day vacation with my wife, and I'm going to try and reintroduce why she got married to me in the first place. I hope.
I wish you the best of luck in that endeavor. You definitely deserve some time off with all you've been doing so far. We really appreciate you taking some time during this busy stretch, and can't wait to watch all the games you'll be calling here coming up through July and the end of the soccer season. Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Mike.
Thank you, Joshua.